But I just want to tell her in front of millions of people all over the country that I love her very much.
Danny DeVito's life story is often told as a classic Hollywood success tale, but the real heart of his journey is not just about fame or movies. It is about a long relationship that shaped almost everything he became. Before he was a well-known actor, Danny was just a struggling performer trying to survive in New York City. He worked hard, attended countless auditions, and often faced rejection because he did not look like a typical Hollywood star. He was short, different in appearance, and often overlooked. But even during those hard years, something important happened in his life. He met Rhea Perlman, a young actress who would later become one of the most important people in his world. Their connection was not built on fame or money because neither of them had those things at the time. Instead, it was built on understanding, shared struggles, and a simple comfort they felt in each other's company. Rhea saw something special in Danny when most people did not. She saw his confidence, humor, and strong personality. Danny, in return, found someone who accepted him without judgment. This early bond became the foundation of a relationship that would last for decades, go through massive success, face separation, and still remain connected in a deeply unusual way. Their story is not just about love in a traditional sense, but about how two people can grow together, change over time, and still hold an emotional connection even when life takes them in different directions. This beginning sets the stage for a story that is far more complex than a normal Hollywood romance. When Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman first met, neither of them imagined the life that was waiting ahead. They were both young actors trying to find their place in a very competitive industry. Acting in New York was not easy, and success was never guaranteed. They spent long days going from one audition to another, often hearing no more than yes. During this time, their relationship grew naturally and quickly. They did not overthink things or follow traditional dating rules. Instead, they simply enjoyed each other's presence and understood each other in a way that felt rare. Within a short time, they decided to live together, which showed how strongly they trusted one another even at an early stage. Many people around them may have thought this was too fast or risky, but for Danny and Rhea, it felt right. They were not chasing perfection, they were building companionship. What made their connection stronger was the fact that they shared similar backgrounds. Both came from ordinary families and understood the value of hard work. Neither of them expected fame to come easily. This created a strong emotional base because they were not impressed by success or distracted by appearances. Instead, they valued honesty, humor, and emotional support. As time passed, their relationship became a safe space in a world that was full of rejection and uncertainty. This early phase of their life together is important because it shows that their bond was built long before fame entered the picture. It was formed in real struggle, not luxury, and that is often what makes relationships last longer than expected in industries like Hollywood. As years passed, Danny DeVito's career slowly began to change. After many small roles and years of struggle, he started to gain attention in the entertainment industry. His big break came when he was cast in major projects that helped him reach a wider audience. One of the most important turning points in his career was when he appeared in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a film that became highly successful and respected. This role opened doors for him and allowed Hollywood to finally see his talent. However, the biggest change in his career came later when he starred in the television show Taxi. His character, Louis De Palma, became extremely popular because it was different from typical TV roles at the time. Danny brought humor, energy, and a unique personality to the character, which made audiences remember him. As his fame grew, his life changed in many ways. He went from struggling actor to well-known television star. This brought money, recognition, and new opportunities, but it also brought pressure and attention. While all of this was happening, Rhea Perlman was also building her own career. She eventually became famous for her role in the hit TV show Cheers, where she played a sharp and funny character loved by audiences. This was important because it meant she was not living in Danny's shadow. Both of them were successful in their own right. This balance helped their relationship stay strong because there was no competition between them. Instead, there was mutual respect and pride. They supported each other's success and celebrated achievements together. During this time, they also started a family, which added another important layer to their lives. Their relationship was no longer just about two people. It became about building a life, raising children, and managing careers in a demanding industry. Even though Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman built a strong life together, their relationship was not without challenges. As their careers became more successful, their lives became busier and more complicated. Hollywood is known for putting pressure on relationships, and theirs was no different. Long working hours, time apart due to filming, and constant public attention created stress. However, unlike many celebrity couples, they handled these challenges with patience for a long time. They continued to support each other and focus on their family. Over time, they also became business partners through their production company, which allowed them to work together professionally. This showed that their relationship was not only romantic but also creative and collaborative. They built films and supported projects that became very successful in Hollywood. Despite all this success, something slowly began to change over the years. As their children grew older and their careers became more stable, the intensity that once kept their relationship strong started to fade. In many relationships, struggle creates connection because couples feel like they are fighting life together. But when stability arrives, new questions begin to appear. People start to change with time, and their needs also change. Danny and Rhea began to realize that they were evolving in different ways. This did not happen suddenly. It was a slow process. There was no major scandal or dramatic fight that ended their relationship. Instead, it was a quiet shift over time. Eventually, after more than 3 decades of marriage, they made the decision to separate. This surprised many people because they had always been seen as one of Hollywood's stronger couples. However, what made their separation different from many others was how they handled it. There was no public anger, no harsh words, and no attempt to damage each other's image. They chose respect over conflict, which made their story even more unique. After their separation, something unusual happened that made Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman's story stand out even more. Instead of completely cutting ties or becoming distant, they continued to maintain a close and respectful relationship. Many couples who separate often become strangers, but that was not the case for them. They continued to talk regularly, attend family events, and spend time together during important moments in their children's lives. Their bond did not disappear, it simply changed form. They moved from being a married couple to being lifelong companions in a different way. This kind of relationship is rare, especially in the entertainment industry where breakups often become public and emotional. Danny and Rhea showed that it is possible for two people to separate without losing respect or emotional connection. Over time, people began to see their story differently. Instead of viewing their separation as a failure, many started to see it as an example of maturity and emotional growth. It showed that relationships do not always need to end in anger or sadness. Sometimes they evolve into something new that still carries meaning. Their children also benefited from this approach because they did not have to experience conflict between their parents. There was no division or pressure to choose sides. Instead, there was stability and unity in family life. Even in interviews, both Danny and Rhea spoke about each other with kindness and respect. They never tried to rewrite their past or speak badly about one another. This attitude made their relationship stand out in a world where celebrity breakups are often dramatic and negative. Looking at Danny DeVito's life today, it becomes clear that his story is not just about acting, fame, or success in Hollywood. It is also about long-term connection and emotional growth. At 81 years old, he has lived many different lives within one lifetime. He was once a struggling actor, then a rising star, and later a respected figure in film and television. Alongside all of this, he experienced a relationship that lasted for decades, built a family, and survived changes that most couples never face. Rhea Perlman played a major role in this journey. She was there before fame, during success, and after separation. Their story challenges the simple idea that relationships are either successful or failed. Instead, it shows that relationships can change shape over time while still holding meaning. Love is not always about staying together in the same way forever. Sometimes it is about growing, changing, and finding new ways to stay connected. Danny and Rhea's story is powerful because it reflects real life more than movie-style romance. It shows that two people can care deeply about each other, even if they no longer live the same life together. Their connection did not disappear after separation, it transformed. This makes their story memorable and meaningful for many people who understand that life and relationships are not always simple. In the end, what remains most important is not the label of marriage or separation, but the respect, care, and shared history that two people build over time. That is what makes their story last in the minds of audiences even today. One of the most interesting parts of Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman's story is how naturally they managed fame once it arrived. In Hollywood, success often changes people quickly. Some couples begin strong but fall apart when money, attention, and pressure increase. But in their case, success seemed to build on the foundation they already had. They had already experienced life without fame, so when it arrived, it did not confuse them or change their values completely. Instead of treating fame as the center of their lives, they treated it as something that came after their relationship was already strong. This made a big difference in how they handled stress and public attention. Danny continued to work in films and television, taking on roles that made him one of the most recognizable actors of his generation. At the same time, Rhea continued her success in television and became respected for her talent and timing in comedy. Even though both were busy, they made sure their family remained a priority. They raised their children in a way that kept them grounded despite living in a world full of cameras and media attention. Many people around them noticed that they did not behave like typical Hollywood celebrities. They were not obsessed with image or status. Instead, they focused on everyday life, family routines, and simple joys. This helped them maintain a sense of normalcy even while living in an abnormal environment. Their story shows that fame does not always destroy relationships. Sometimes, if the foundation is strong enough, it can be handled with balance and maturity. What mattered most was not how famous they became, but how they treated each other while everything around them changed. As the years passed, Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman began entering a new stage of life where priorities naturally started to shift. After decades of working hard in Hollywood, raising children, and building careers, life slowly became less about constant struggle and more about reflection. This is often a stage where many relationships face challenges, because the excitement and pressure that once held people together begins to fade. When people are young and busy building their future, they often feel connected through shared goals. But when those goals are achieved, there is sometimes a quiet space that opens up, and that space can reveal differences that were not visible before. For Danny and Rhea, this was not a sudden problem but a gradual realization. They were still connected, still respectful, and still deeply involved in each other's lives, but something had changed in how they experienced their relationship. They were no longer the same people they were when they first met in New York. Time had shaped them, shaped their thoughts, and shaped their emotional needs. Instead of ignoring these changes, they eventually faced them with honesty. This is one of the most important parts of their story, because it shows emotional maturity. Many couples try to hold on to the past version of their relationship, even when it no longer fits their present life. Danny and Rhea, however, chose a different path. They accepted that people evolve, and relationships must evolve too. This understanding later played a key role in how they handled their separation, making it less painful and more respectful than most Hollywood breakups. When Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman finally separated after many years of marriage, the public reaction was one of surprise and confusion. People often assume that long-term celebrity relationships are either perfect or dramatic failures, with no middle ground. Because Danny and Rhea had been together for so long, many fans believed they were one of those rare Hollywood couples that would stay together forever. So when news of their separation came out, it challenged that belief. However, what happened after the separation was even more surprising than the separation itself. Instead of creating distance or hostility, they continued to maintain a strong family connection. They did not turn their relationship into a public conflict or use media interviews to express anger or blame. This was very different from many celebrity breakups, where emotions often become public and relationships turn into stories of conflict. In their case, silence and respect defined the situation more than drama did. They continued to show up for their children, attend family gatherings, and stay present in each other's lives. This created a unique situation where they were no longer a married couple, but they were still very much a family. Over time, this approach changed how people viewed them. Instead of seeing the separation as a failure, many began to see it as a different kind of success. It showed that relationships do not always need to end completely just because marriage ends. Emotional connection, shared history, and family bonds can continue even when romantic life changes. This idea is not common in celebrity culture, which is why their story stands out so strongly. Looking at the full story of Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman, it becomes clear that their relationship is not just a Hollywood story, but a human story. It reflects the reality that life is not always simple, and relationships are not always linear. They met as young actors struggling to survive, built a life together, achieved success, raised a family, and eventually chose to separate after many years. But even after all of this, they did not lose the bond that connected them. Instead, they transformed it into something new. This transformation is what makes their story so powerful and unusual. In a world where breakups are often loud and painful, their quiet respect for each other stands out. In a world where relationships are often measured only by whether they last or fail, their story introduces a different idea, that connection can continue even after separation. Danny DeVito's life cannot be fully understood without recognizing the role Rhea Perlman played in it. She was there during his early struggles, his rise to fame, and his personal growth over decades. Likewise, Danny was a constant presence in her life during her own journey in Hollywood. Together, they created not just a marriage, but a shared history that shaped both of them deeply. Even today, their story continues to interest people because it feels real. It does not follow a perfect script, and it does not end in a neat conclusion. Instead, it reflects the complexity of real human relationships. And maybe that is why it remains so memorable. It shows that love is not always about staying together forever, but about how deeply two people impact each other's lives, even when their paths eventually change direction. If you enjoy this video, like, comment, and subscribe the channel for latest content. Thanks for watching.